we're going to demonstrate how to make holes using Inventor 13. You see that I have just a simple rectangular block, and I'm going to start by, I'm going to drill some holes here on the top of this surface. So I'm going to start by placing points on the surface where I want the centers to be. So we're going to make a new sketch, and we're going to place points. Now the points command is up here near line, circle, there's point. So we're going to select point, and we're simply going to put the point where we want it. Now, I'm not going to be too concerned. I want them to be in the same line, and you can notice as I put my cursor like on the line, it will snap to certain points and show me where the center is. Let's say I want to put it right there. I'm going to put one right there, and you can see that it's lined up with that one. We might as well line them up. Now, if you wanted to, you could dimension these. I'm not going to mess with that right now, but you could certainly dimension those from the edges by selecting the point and the edge. And if you were doing an engineering drawing and making a part, you would have to do that. You would have to locate the center of your hole. This point is going to end up being the center of the hole that we make. But right now, for this purpose, we just want to put four points on here. So we're going to finish our sketch, and you can see that I have my 4 points where my 4 different holes are going to be located. Now, to put the holes onto a part, we're going to be using a 3D feature called Hole, and it's right here under the Modify tab. And if I leave it there, remember you can get an animation or a video, or in this case a simple graphic that shows you how to make the hole. So I'm going to go through this with you. I'm going to select the Hole command, and this dialog box is going to come up. You'll notice right away that all 4 of my points were selected. It automatically did that. I don't know why. I only want to work on this hole for now. So I'm going to hold the Control key down and deselect these centers. Do you see that? By holding down the Control key on the keyboard, I can deselect. And that's true for any type of selection process. Hold down the Control key and deselect what you don't want to select. All right, so you can see now that I've got this hole selected, and it's giving me a preview of the type of hole that I'm making. Let's come over here and take a look here at the Hole command dialog. Right here it tells me, it shows me where my centers are. Okay, here it shows me the type of hole that I can create. This particular hole is a drilled hole. It's a simple through hole, just a drill. There's no counterbore or countersink. This hole is a counterbore. This hole here is called a, what's this one called? It's called a spot face, and this one is called a countersink. Okay, I don't even know what a spot face is. Wouldn't be too hard to find out, but it looks very similar to a counterbore. We don't really use that one. We're going to use the counterbore and the countersink and the drilled hole. And you can see that by selecting the type of hole that you want. Over here it gives you a place to enter in the specifications for that particular hole. Let's start off by doing a simple hole, and it tells me that I can select the diameter of that hole. 0.25 is a good diameter. It's a 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch hole, that's very standard. I'm going to go ahead and make a 1/4 inch hole. Now, do I want this to be a blind hole or a through hole? If I want it to be a blind hole, I need to select a distance. And we come over here to where it says termination, and I can select distance, and then, okay, now it wants me to tell it how far down to drill it. 1 inch, 2 inches, whatever it would be. In this case, I want it to be a through hole, so I'm going to select through all. Now, if I come down over here, you can see that here we have some other options. This is a simple hole. It means it's just going to be a 1/4 inch all the way through. This one is a through clearance hole. So if I select that one, if I select the clearance hole, you can see that it's going to give me some other options here that I can put it that I can select. The clearance hole, we don't use this particular hole too much, because if we want to have a clearance hole, we'll simply do a through hole and then specify a little bit bigger diameter. So let me go back to that 0.25. That's my hole. It's going to be a standard hole through. It's going to go all the way through it, and it's going to have a diameter of 0.25. And I'll select OK. And you can see now that I've got my hole all the way through. Okay? Now, we're going to make some other holes. I want to make a counterbore and a countersink and a threaded. But where'd my holes go? Where'd my centers go? Well, they're on the sketch. And remember that when you have a sketch and you do some three-dimensional function to that sketch, it disappears or gets what's called consumed. It's there. It's under hole 1. Here it is. There's my sketch. I'm going to right click. I'm going to share the sketch. And that brings back the centers. Okay? So don't forget that. You can always go back to your sketch under the feature that you made the sketch into. Okay, I made my sketch into a hole. So under the hole here on the browser bar, it tells me there's my sketch. I shared the sketch. I got my points back. Okay, let's go back to the hole command. Again, it's selecting these holes I don't want. I'll hold the control key down, deselect these two, and now we're going to make a counter bore hole. So a counter bore hole is the second option. And you'll notice here it gives me options for not only the diameter of the hole, but also the diameter of the counter bore and the depth. I'm going to go ahead and accept these as the default. And again, I'm going to make a through hole. But how far down do I want it to go? In this case, not all the way down. In this case, I'm going to select a termination of 1 inch. And you can see now it gives me that option. So we have the counter bore diameter, the counter bore depth, the depth of the hole, we'll keep it at 2, and the diameter of the hole. Then we'll say apply. Oops. Counter bore diameter must be greater than the hole diameter. Well, of course it should be. So why does it say that? Okay, we need to make that bigger. 0.25, let's make this 0.35. Okay, and now we can see it's giving us a preview of how big that hole is. Typically, when you're making a counter bore hole, the screw that you're going to put in there will have specifications, and you'll know exactly what those dimensions should be. So there's my counter bore diameter, there's my depth, there's my counter bore depth, there's my hole depth, and there's my hole diameter. I apply it, and now you can see here what it did. You see the counter bore? It makes a bigger hole on the outside for a certain depth, and then it goes down, and you'll notice down there I've got my hole not going all the way through. Okay, it only goes down 2 inches. All right, let's make a countersink hole. A countersink hole, go to my hole command. I'm going to have to deselect this one on the end. I'm going to come down to countersink, and now the countersink gives me a diameter for the outside and then an angle. Let's go ahead and change this angle to, say, 42 or 45. And you can see it's making subtle changes over here. If I change it to 80, see that? It's making the change. We'll keep it at 80. I want to go down 2 inches and a 0.25. That's perfect. Apply it. And voila, we have a countersink. Do you see that? Countersink, counter bore. And last but not least, we have a threaded hole, a hole that would accept a screw or a bolt. Okay? I made this countersink. I didn't want to. So I'm going to delete hole 4. I don't want that one. But I'm going to use, there was my point. I'll go back to my hole command. Now that's the only center available. I'm going to make it a standard hole, but I'm going to make it taper. I'm going to make it threaded, which is the third option here. This is a threaded hole, and it's going to want to know what kind of hole it is. Well, I'm going to make it, we're typically going to use the unified screw threads. I want it to be 0.25. Here's my designation, quarter 20. It would be a 0.25 with 20 threads per inch. You could change that. See, these are different thread specifications. Okay. We can specify if we want it to be full depth or not. That means it goes all the way down through. Otherwise, we specify how far we want it to go down. So the thread doesn't have to go all the way through the hole. You could specify a dimension here for the thread, or you could say full depth, and it goes all the way down. Let's go ahead and select full depth just because we can. And then we will hit apply. And OK. And look what it does. It gives us a threaded hole. So there you go. We have our through hole, simple hole. We have a counter bore hole. We have a countersink hole. And we have a threaded through hole, or a threaded blind hole. Now, in the other PowerPoint, in the PowerPoint that you looked at before, it showed you how to specify these holes. So in the next assignment, you're going to be filling out a worksheet using the information from this tutorial and from the other one to complete it. Okay, good luck, and I know you'll do great.